Oh, now it's live.
Okay,
It said
it's live.
error, but
Okay,
here we are.
we got an error notification, everybody. That's why we're a little freaked out. Um,
Speaking of
uh,
freaked out, I just have to tell you that I'm sitting at a different desk today because my hairstylist told me that the lighting in the last one was not complimenting my hair.
oh, that's right. You told me
And
that.
now I feel really self-conscious. So Fulia, if you're watching this, I tried.
Oh,
But
that's
now I'm
funny.
at the desk where yesterday when I was sitting here, minding my own business, editing, up in my
Yeah.
bedroom actually, I heard a blook and a bzzz, and out of nowhere fell a wasp.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, and so now I'm, like, worried that there's a source of wasps in my bedroom.
Oh, yeah.
So,
That's not
if I
fun.
start freaking out, that's why.
Well, so you're in a place where you have good lighting for your hair, and
Well, I
I,
don't know if I
I
do. I
am
don't
very
know if
aware.
this is
I would
gonna
just like to
fit.
go on record that this morning when I woke up,
Your hair is
I
wet,
was
by the way.
having such a good hair day. It was like a killer hair day. And then, of course, I had to go for a run and have a shower. And again, I have wet hair for the
Yeah,
live. It's just a problem because my hair takes too long to dry and the humidity is like 95%. So, how is it ever going to dry? So, anyway,
you
now
always
that
have.
we've gotten over our hair woes and successes, um, I was just thinking about world building, believe it or not, in my acting class that I am taking right
Oh,
now,
yeah.
in which there is another writer who we both know, a friend of ours,
Mhm.
is also in the class. But it came up. I think she was talking about a script that she had encountered in something that she had seen, and how the writing was very sort of needed to convey a lot of technical information. I think she had watched the movie Sully. That's what it was. And it was conveying all this technical information, and there was sort of no smooth way to get that information in there. And it made me think about the sort of the little clever quip about world building where, especially for, science fiction, if you need to explain something, you break it. So you say things like, "Oh no, the flux capacitor is
Oh, right.
broken. Without the flux capacitor,
We
we'll
can't blah,
never
blah,
be
blah.
able to blah 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 blah." And that's how you tell your audience. But of course, every book has world building, right? We don't always have flux capacitors. So
Really.
I was thinking about how there is a link in my brain between these two things, that how you adapt personal experience, like your own world, and
Mhm.
how
That's
writers have
true.
to be conscious to say, "This is my world, I know it, but now I have to build it for you." And if it's not science fiction, you think like, "Oh, I don't need to build it. It's a world. Everybody knows it. We all live it," but they don't. We don't all, right? So
No,
if
of
you're
course
writing
not.
fiction,
I mean,
you
we
have
all
to
each live in our own world.
exactly. So you have
Right.
to build a world. And then thinking about if you're adapting from, as I think a lot of people do, right? They adapt from, if not their own experience, it's like family history. Don't you
Mm.
think that's like a really common thing? I mean, yours is like history in a bigger scale, but you
Yeah,
specifically,
yeah.
obviously, but we're always bringing some piece of family experience or personal experience or some story that we heard. It's always coming in. And
Right.
how I was working with an author recently, in a one-on-one thing where she was adapting uh, something that might have otherwise been treated as a memoir and was novelizing it, which is a very useful way to approach it, right? And you avoid a lot of the pitfalls of, oh my God, I'm
Mm.
writing this memoir and what are my family going to think? But then working with her to clarify places where, yes, it happened,
But it's
but
not.
doesn't make a good story,
Right,
right?
right.
Like,
Yeah, that's
yes,
really
there were
hard.
5 brothers in that family, but
Mhm.
kill 3 of them because we only need 2.
Right.
Or, those kinds of things, and it's so tricky because those are like the worst darlings, right?
And so here's my question, because you're saying this is in a situation where somebody is adapting their own story or something that happened, like sort of
Yeah,
what might have been a memoir into
yeah.
fiction. But you kind of still have to do that even with memoir in order to
Yes,
make
that's
it a good
true.
story. You have to find what is still being true to the experience and the message you're trying to get across and what actually happened, but you don't put it all in
Right.
because some of it is not good story.
Right, and I think that's a misconception that I think a lot of people have, and I mean, I don't know, I don't talk to a lot of memoir readers who are, so I'm not sitting over their shoulders to say, "How are you reacting to this piece of information? Do you assume that everything you're reading on the page is exactly as it occurred?" But it can't be because, again, life is repetitive and extravagant sometimes. It's either things happen too much
Right.
in both ways, too much in ways that are boring and too much in ways that are just like, "Oh, come on, who's gonna believe that? It's just too much."
And
You
but
have to dial it back.
it's also kind of in the way how dialogue needs to be believable and true, but you don't actually put on the page exactly how people speak.
Right,
You take
right,
out the ums and the ers and the repetition, some of the repetitions, and you craft the dialogue in a weird way. You're putting all this effort into crafting this thing that may have happened. I may have happened in reality, or it's happened in the reality of your fiction. But you can't actually put it all there the way it did
right,
happen.
right.
Because
No,
then the reading experience is crappy. I mean,
no, that's really true, and actually, I mean, we could talk I could talk for a long time about dialogue. I just, I love to write dialogue, and I love to craft it, and I think you have to approach it, and maybe this is something you can extrapolate in a more macro way, but with dialogue, I think that you sure, go ahead, write your first draft dialogue, but then you have to look at your lines
mhm,
and look for any one word that can convey 2 things.
mhm,
Like, if there's a concept that you've had the person say in the first sentence, and then 2 sentences later, they come back to it. Like, it's like poetry. You can have that word carry over. It
right,
can
like an
have this sort
echo.
of accretive meaning so that you don't have to repeat terms or phrases, and it creates a kind of gestalt that gives the reader the meaning and keeps the conversation going. It has to be
Yeah,
so economical.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I can't stand dialogue that
Eh
goes on too much.
Well, this makes me think of this, I turned down a memoir at some point, and it was really hard. I know you and we talked about
Yeah,
it,
I know which one you mean.
which you may or may not recall,
Yeah.
but it was a very, um somebody's chiming in with
Yeah.
ancient historian. Um, it was a very, intense. It was, in a sense, it was a very intense experience. This person almost died.
I know what you mean.
Obviously,
Yeah.
it had a huge impact on her and her
Yeah.
family and her outlook, um, and she had very good style, like, it
Mhm.
was a good reading experience in terms of the style and the language,
Mhm.
but in the end, and it felt, horrible thinking this way, but in the end, looking at it from a, "Are readers gonna wanna read this? Are people gonna stay with it?"
Mhm.
Uh, it was kind of like, "So what?" And
Mhm.
I really had to think about how to write a letter to the author, because especially with memoir, you can't, I mean, I think for some people, it's probably a little easier to take the rejection. I hate the word rejection, but
Mhm.
when somebody chooses not to go on with your
Yeah.
manuscript, if it's fiction, it's not like a turning away of you as a person, but if it's a
Right.
memoir,
Right.
it's so linked, and so I spent a whole weekend with, like, in the back of my head, sort of composing the letter to
Mm.
her,
Mm.
because I certainly didn't want it to come across as, "Your experience is not valid, your experience didn't matter, nobody cares."
Yeah. Yeah.
But it wasn't a story. At the end of the narrative, other than the fact that obviously she survived this thing,
Mm.
she wasn't there wasn't that much of an arc,
And that's the thing is,
and
like,
it
I
wasn't
always think about,
surprising.
we have these family stories that if you sat down next to somebody at a bar and you were like, "Oh, I gotta tell you this cool thing that just happened in my family," or, if someone asked the question, you would tell something in such an abbreviated fashion,
Uh-huh.
right? That it would work.
Well, yeah,
It would be this like, "Oh my god, this thing, pop, 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 pop," and it would
yeah,
be over in no time, and you would have left out a million things, or else you would be trying to go on and do the whole thing, and people would be leaving the
Oh,
bar
that's what my child used to do.
and
That's
like,
what my younger child has, great stories in her head and all, or dreams, it's like when people tell
"Oh,
you the
yeah,
whole
yeah," when you tell
it's
someone,
like,
yeah,
"Oh god, please don't." Because, like, I wasn't in your head and I wasn't experiencing all that, and for you to convey it to me now that you're awake and it was magical for you then, but it's not working. Just tell
yeah,
me the basic things.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's the basic things, and that's what's harder when if you
Specific
imagine
de
yourself sitting down on a bar stool to tell somebody, well, then that's easy. You're just gonna say it fast. But then when you sit down to write it as a novel,
Right.
you want to keep everything in. Or like with this one-on-one with working with the other author that I started talking about, there were some events that were she was experiencing because she really experienced this thing that I won't go into because we don't need to, but there were sort of successes and setbacks, successes and setbacks, successes and setbacks. And while we know that even in the W structure that is so evocative that Mary Carroll Moore
Mhm.
has talked about, we know that within those macro lines are
That's like
small up
yeah,
and
yeah.
downs. I mean, Aristotle, peripetia, which means
Mhm.
adventure in modern Greek, and it means mm, like a turning, a seeking. It's an up and
Yeah,
down. In ancient
yeah.
Greek, that's what he meant. We know that those little things happen, but if you have too many of those, you lose the energy. It just
Yeah,
runs out of steam.
yeah.
So I was telling her, like, you might want to take some of these, like, if you think of them as pluses and minuses,
Mhm.
instead of going plus minus plus minus plus, take some of the pluses and group them together so that then
Right,
you have a
and
shape. Or
right,
take the negatives, and it's like, ah, setback, setback, setback,
and then
setback,
ta-da!
success. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But it didn't happen that way.
Mhm.
But that's okay when you're
Right,
adapting because you have to take the raw material and massage it around to make it be interesting. And it's hard. I think it's hard when people feel that they are killing the darling of an actual family member or an actual event that happened. I'm always fascinated by looking at the time. I'm always fascinated by the way we say, I mean, I do it too. We all do it. Like, oh, it's true. Can you believe it? It's based on it really happened to her.
right.
Somehow we say that as though it matters. It matters to us that a fictional story
Was
has
based
a
on
connection to
something.
reality.
I
Yeah.
mean, they all have a connection to reality in some way, have a connection to the author's reality,
Yeah, but I
right?
don't know
The
what it is that we
experiences that the
really
author drew on to put in.
yeah. But, like, when we say that, when we say, like, "Oh my god, it really happened to her." What
Yeah,
are we
why do we care so
doing?
much?
What
I
motivates
don't
our
know.
fascination with that? I don't
Like
or
movies also based on a true story. I think maybe it opens up, we read stories or we consume stories, however we consume them, in part to sort of, aspire to something or see a possibility for ourselves or place ourselves somehow within the world. And so if we know that it actually happened to a real person, maybe it feels
possible.
more possible. Right.
Yeah, it's almost like
Maybe
but of course, if it happened, it's like in some ways it was created by the person, depends on the story. Like the person made their own luck or their own fate. But
mhm,
sometimes things just happen, right? And it's like something will just have
right.
happened to a person and we still have that response. It's like we're like, good job, life.
But it's
You made that
no, because
story.
what we're responding to then is how that person responds or
Right.
responded. This
Right.
is a real person who did this thing. I can't even say, "Oh, that's not possible. I could never do that," because here's somebody who did.
Who did it? Yeah. I almost feel like there's another piece, and I'm coming at it maybe from a slightly different angle, which is like the storytelling of it is specifically like if we know it's fiction, we're like, well, yeah, but you could make that up. Anybody could make that up. But if we know it's a real story, it's like, oh,
What's that
but
whole
like the
truth with
actual
strangers?
world created that.
Right.
Like if I made it up, I can make it up. I can make up anything. But like reality made it up. Oh,
I guess,
it's
yeah,
sort of
because we live
like,
in that
oh,
reality.
it's a bigger achievement that reality came up with an amazing
But
story.
no, I don't think it's a question of the achievement. I think it's a question of what we read into it as
Yeah.
individuals who live in
Yeah.
in in the actual world on
Yeah.
that lofty note.
Look at that, on that lofty note.
I
Love
know.
that.
Thank you, Derek, for chiming in with ancient Greek
Yeah, I love it.
knowledge there. We
That's
appreciate
great.
it. Yes,
Yeah.
and I see one of our authors,
Yeah,
2 of our
that's right.
authors, a
One of
future,
2
a past and a future and a future. Actually, one of them is past and future. Anyway, okay.
we have
I'll
to go.
stop
We have to
now.
stop. We have to stop.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
rest of the week.